there's no problem with visiting excitement. Some things in this life are exciting and you get to visit that. But for that to be your main speed, for that to be the thing that defines your contentment or your happiness, if you're defining contentment by excitement, then you really don't understand contentment at all.
Thanks, Tommy. Thanks for the rest of this crew to be in circle and in a community of recovery is always one of my favorite things. So 7 years ago, I started my recovery journey, and it was my second time in recovery. It was coming off a 2-year relapse, a recovery that didn't work, and I had shredded my life. I had caused a lot of pain for me and my family, and I was so scared. I was about to lose virtually everything, including maybe my freedom. Jail was in the equation at this point. And I remember calling my wife saying, I've relapsed. I've been stealing narcotics from work, and I'm about to get fired. I might never have a career again. I might be going to jail. I don't know what to. I'm so sorry I've done this to you again. And she said to me, I don't want you coming home. I don't want you to detox around me or the kids. Go find recovery like your life and and our marriage depends on it, because it does. And so I did. I'm so grateful that I had that in me. I kind of came to this recovery with the idea that all of my best thinking didn't work anymore, and I needed to find some thinking that did. And so I started to surround myself for the first time with other people in recovery and listen to what they said and do what they told me or suggested. And a momentum started to happen in my recovery and in my life that it's beyond anything I've ever experienced. So for the first 3 or 4 years, it was like that. And 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 so the craving for drink and drug went away very quickly, but the growth in who I was like a rocket ship. And so I was able to see these big changes month after month, year after year for the first, like I said, 3 or 4 years. And I also had that pain of that and fear of that relapse and my life shredding relapse right there, not too far away, even 2 or 3 or 4 years into it. As I've gone along, what I've found is I've lost a little bit of that fire. Two ways. My life is so good that I don't have a lot of pain in it anymore. I mean, there is some pain, but not anywhere near what it was. And so I don't have pain as a huge motivator, which has always been my motivator for change. The other thing is that the changes, because the big stuff happened early, the changes now are more subtle and less exciting, I guess. And and so I don't have those sort of big moments as often, or that sort of keep me in the momentum like they used to. And so I'm I'm curious what to do. I'm at 7 years. How do I get that fire back? I go to meetings. I still go to meetings, and I see the people that are 1 or 2 years into their recovery on fire, and I'm like, man, I remember that. I remember that. I love that feeling, like everything they hear is blowing their mind, and I haven't felt that way in a while, and so I'm wondering how to get the fire back.
Thank you so much, Damon. An incredible inquiry. I'm so excited to dig in and explore this with you. In recovery circles, as you know, 12-step recovery circles in particular, and also psychological circles, psychotherapeutic circles, we talk a lot about the gift of desperation. This idea that a person gets sober or they get onto that path of recovery from a place of desperation, that desperation is the reason that propels them forward onto the path. And for a while, that reason is valid and it carries enough weight to keep a person moving forward along that path. And I think it's a very real thing, the gift of desperation. I think that I got sober off of the gift of desperation. There's a saying within 12 step programs that they operate on this idea of attraction. And really, it isn't true. Nobody has ever been, woken up and been like, I think I'll go there. That would be my choice. Um, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Al Anon, Cocaine Anonymous, Marijuana Anonymous, whatever the thing is. People go there because they have to go there. They go there because of desperation. They go there because a court ordered them to go there. Or they go there because their wife or their husband or a loved one gave them an ultimatum and said, this isn't going to work. Or they go there because they themselves have come to that bottom, that sacred place that we refer to as a bottom, where they're finally able to tell the truth to themselves. They're finally able to tell the truth. And from that place of desperation, they can say the truth. My way has failed. I don't know how to live. I can't continue the way that I've been. But the corollary, the very next statement is, but I also don't know how to live. I can't be the way I've been, but I don't know how else to be, which is that desperate place. And it's such a sacred, I call it a sacred place because from that expression of honesty, I don't know. I don't have this. I'm not able to do it on my own. From that expression of honesty, an entirely new life can take place, as we have all experienced. Out of that desperation of not knowing how to live, not being able to continue the way we were going. So, what happens? We get into recovery. And as you've described in your direct story, we have a period of time where the first thing that happens is we have a very gross meaning physical, incredibly physical, detectable, gross in terms of the opposite of subtle, which is going to come into our conversation here in a minute. But we have a very gross detox. The physical body detoxes. For me, it was cocaine and heroin and alcohol, and my body physically detoxed from those substances at the physical level. And when your body detoxes at the physical level, a few very fundamental things take place. Number one, you're able to sleep again. You actually go to bed at night. And when you go to bed, you actually sleep. Like you might actually even encounter this thing called rest. And you wake up rested in the morning when maybe for months or years you haven't felt that. Another thing happens when you detox at the physical level. You start to eat food. And maybe you actually have 3 meals a day. For the first time, you have 3 meals a day. And as a result of eating 3 meals a day and sleeping well, you start to recover at the physical level. You start to feel better. And of course, when you recover at the physical level, you also recover at the emotional level and the mental level. The mind is not exactly, let's say, at its highest wisdom state when we first get, into recovery, but the frantic, neurotic, and in some cases like mine, psychotic mental behavior of those last months of addiction, we're relieved of that simply by sleeping, eating, and beginning to get back into a more normal routine. As the physical body heals and the emotional body starts to heal and the mental body starts to heal, this thing starts to happen, this phenomena that I've recognized in many people. The phenomena is the healing of the ego. Now, when the ego heals, some very interesting thoughts start to present themselves to a person who just a short while ago, or whatever it was was really in trouble, and had reached a bottom and had been able to express that truth. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to live. I need help. In a short period of time, maybe a month, maybe 3 months, maybe a year, maybe it took 2 years. The ego starts to come in and say, maybe it wasn't so bad. Maybe I just had a rough patch. What if I went back to things the way they were? Because that made sense to me. Like the ego, when it recovers, it remembers the good times, but it selectively cancels out the hell and the pain and the suffering of reaching a bottom and what that was and how it wasn't working. So this ego recovery is really significant in this initial phase. Now, what I'm hearing from you is a tremendous amount of spiritual and emotional growth in your early years of recovery. The relief that comes when you no longer crave drugs or alcohol, and you've been relieved of that, incredible. And you've moved forward, now 7 years, as I know you, to the extent that I do, I know that you work in the field of recovery and you're very supportive and you are a service oriented person who helps a lot of people. That's a part of your life. But as you've gone through these shifts and these changes, you are in a different place mentally, emotionally, spiritually than you were 7 years previous. That is to say, that the reason why you got sober, the gift of desperation that was there, is no longer there. That can no longer be the reason for which you remain a person in recovery. Your recovery has to emanate from some other energy. Now, the whole concept of the ego healing and the deeper and deeper, more subtle forms of detox in the body and the mind and the spirit. I believe from your inquiry that you're at another level of detox that's waiting for you right now. A deeper level within the mind, the body, the spirit. And it's fueled by a question. And the question you asked is, how do I get my fire back? How do I get and I read that as your passion for recovery. How do I wake up jazzed? I see these people who have had these massive changes, and my changes at 7 years sober, you're saying, are more subtle, less intense. And so the question I hear you asking, the inquiry is, how can I be thrilled by something that is more subtle? How can I redefine the reason why I choose this path? See, it for me, it's very simple. As you know, I speak with a lot of people in recovery, and we all pretty much agree. If we want to use drugs or alcohol, if that idea is planted in our head and we stay with that idea long enough, we will. We will use. We will eventually go back. The point is that we're relieved of the desire to use. Why? Part of the reason is because of the fear that you spoke of and remembering that desperation. Even now at 7 years, you probably have a faint, distant memory of what that was. Maybe not so faint, maybe not so distant. For me to stay sober, for me to be on this path of recovery, which I call the path of discovery, This thing has to have weight for me. I have to have a philosophical understanding of what I'm doing. And if my why was, well, for me, I'm speaking now for me. If my why is I don't want to return to the life I had, my reason for doing this thing is because of the fear of returning to a life which is dangerous to me and horrible to me and fraught with consequences. I don't want to go back. And I contend that for people in recovery, if you stay in recovery long enough, hopefully you have this massive transformation, which your question says to me that you've experienced it and now you're going to move really fully into it. The transformation is from fear to love. This movement from fear into love. So at one point we stayed sober out of the fear of what would happen if we didn't. And the jazz that we got was this new life and these new possibilities and new openings and creativity and health in the body, and we slept at night and we ate food and we lived and we had relationships and we did things. We could think of something and we could manifest it. We could take an action towards the manifestation of an idea. In addition, this was impossible for us. And that worked. We didn't want to go return to a life that was so fraught with pain and suffering and consequence. But after a while, that's no longer the reason why we're staying sober. That's no longer the reason why we're on this path. It can't be. I contend that after a while, a person wants to make that shift and it's automatic. It's not like you try to make the shift. It's that you go from a place of fear of going back and experiencing those consequences. Now you shift into that space of love. I stay sober today. I walk the path of recovery. I choose this path because of the life that I have created, because of the opportunities that are before me, because of the way that I get to live a deeper, more fulfilled life. I have very hard days and I get to feel all of that. I also have joyful days. I learn from my challenges and I experience my joys. And so I see that life is happening for me, not happening to me. So my why has shifted. My why has shifted into this appreciation of the life and the possibility of this life. There's another thing behind my approach to recovery, my approach to this spiritual path that we're talking about. I'm dedicated to something. I'm 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 absolutely committed to something. And that something is not staying sober. Yes, that's a commitment of mine, but that's not the thing to which I'm committed. I'm committed to something else that requires I stay sober, abstinent from drugs and alcohol. And the thing I'm committed to is health and wellness. I'm so committed to that. That means so much to me. And I'm committed to something else, my spiritual potential as a human being. I want to realize my spiritual potential as a human being. And I can't do it if I veil my consciousness, intoxicate my body and mind. I can't reach the place that I so desire to be and live from every single day. And because I've been working on that concept of health and wellness and living to my spiritual fulfillment, that reinforces my decision, that gives weight to my decision, that gives philosophical meaning to my decision to be abstinent from drugs and alcohol. They feed each other. Now, that works for me. That may or may not be inspiring to you or anyone who's listening. But what I hope you take away from this is the why for me is no longer about desperation, because that desperation went away a long time ago. I guess you could say I have this longing. So my desperation was replaced with a longing to connect with the greater possibility of this life. Some people refer to that as God. Some people would call that spirit or higher power or the universe. Whatever the language or the relationship is there, somehow that thing got into me. It got into the cells of my body, and it became the reason for which I get to walk and choose to walk this path of recovery, which is for me a drugless path, an abstinent path, and then it's a path of course, observation and looking, like what we're doing right now. For example, you're asking a question that's forcing me to think about my own life. I'm the great benefactor here. I hope you get something out of this too, but I want you to understand that in my reflection of this question, this is really helping me to understand the reason why, my reason why to be on this path. My teacher, Guru Prem, he told me, Tommy, and this was a long time ago, 15, 18 years ago. He told me, you're going to have to become thrilled by the subtle, thrilled by the subtle. And I said, okay, Guru Prem, let's unpack that, please. I need more information about becoming thrilled by the subtle. What does that mean to you? And he's like, well, I notice that you're always after impact. You're always after like excitement, drama. Uh, you know, you're not necessarily the most grounded person. You're not necessarily, relaxed in your mind and body. And this is me after, a long time sober, and he ruffled my feathers a lot, as any good teacher does. But I knew it was coming from a place of love and what he was trying to prepare me for. And I'm gonna say this, but I don't mean it to be as dramatic as it sounds. He was preparing me for a life of spiritual development, and he was preparing me to die. He was preparing me for the most subtle thing I'm ever going to do, which is to take my last breath. That'll be the last act that I can do. And if I could do that last act with great consciousness and acceptance, joy, love, and appreciation, if my last thing that I ever utter on my breath is thank you, that would be a good way to end this life. And he was trying to get me to understand, I was in my early 30s at that point. He was trying to get me to understand, there's no problem with visiting excitement. Some things in this life are exciting and you get to visit that. But for that to be your main speed, for that to be the thing that defines your contentment or your happiness, if you're defining contentment by excitement, then you really don't understand contentment at all. He was trying to help me understand a deeper level of joy in this life. And he knew, because he was, older than me, he knew that when I got older, so I'm now the age he was, I'm a little older actually than the age he was when I met him. But he knew that when I get older, as we all do, we must obey. We must obey our energy. We must obey the body. We must obey the physics of getting older. And we're going to want to do this beautiful thing called becoming an elder, which is not just to having to do with age and being around for a while. Becoming an elder has to do with stepping into your wisdom, being a guide and a compassionate and kind presence on the planet, being able to support those who ask you for help, and you can show up and just be helpful to those people as a true elder. He was preparing me for that, and I have to work at that now and every day. I aspire to that. Also, I find that thrilling, but that's a very subtle thing compared to the things I thought about in my early 30s. And so it may not be the sexiest thing for people to hear about, but it's the sexiest thing going. It is. It's like, wait a minute. I get to be thrilled in my meditation. I mean, thrilled, like fulfilled. I get to really experience what contentment means, to be truly at peace within my own skin, to be at peace in this mind, which used to be so pain struck. I get to experience a depth of emotion both sadness and happiness, contentment, challenge, all of it, the full range of human emotion. And I wouldn't want that to be any other way. I get to have a depth of relationship with people like my wife and like my dear friends and my extended family through Recovery 2.0, and to do these things that are correct for me to be doing. It feels like my dharma. He was trying to tell me, as you become more thrilled by the subtle, a greater bandwidth of joy is going to become available to you. And so if there's any, like, answer to your inquiry here, it's, I encourage you to work on this idea of becoming thrilled with the subtle aspects of your life, to become even more. And I know you have a practice. I know you practice yoga. I know that you teach. I know that you breathe. I know that you meditate. And now to really, really turn that up a notch in terms of the way that you approach your practice. Really opening yourself up to the possibility of a deeper experience. And since I believe in the power of prayer, I mean, that's stated wrong. I would say I know the power of prayer. And because I know the power of prayer, that's a beautiful prayer. God, great spirit, higher power, intelligence of the universe, could you please guide me towards a deeper experience, towards a more fulfilled experience? Help me to redefine for myself at this level of recovery where my joy is. Like me, I'm guessing, and I can't say for sure, you will not be able to experience the same highs you experienced in your first couple years of recovery. You'll experience other highs. You'll experience other things. And if you go looking for those previous experiences and those previous highs and those previous emotions, you will simply be stuck in the pattern of trying to recreate something from the past that was pleasurable. And the suggestion, the directive is bring yourself present, bring yourself present, bring yourself present, and come into the joy of this moment right now. My prayer lately has been lead me into something that I've never experienced before. Take me into something that I've not yet experienced. Help me to put aside the things I think I know and take me somewhere I've never been. And help me to get out of my own way so we can go there, because I know that I need to go into the unknown to continue. That my work in becoming more and more subtle, more and more thrilled by the subtle, it's going to take me into the unknown. This seems to be the place we have to go. And so the cautionary tale is don't look back. Don't look back. Let it go. Be here now. Accept the discomfort in not knowing what's coming. Accept the discomfort of feeling as if this thing has been lost. Nothing has actually been lost. Dash that story upon the rocks for the untruth that it is, and come back to this place now. The joy is here. It isn't there, and it isn't in the recreation of what was. You're going to forge forward into something new now. Deepen the practice, deepen your conversations with the people you love, deepen your relationship with food, become more prayerful, become more subtle. Make this a practice in your life. And I believe you will find a joy, a jazz, an excitement, which is more subtle in nature, but even more profound and appropriate for this level of development that you've laid all these unbelievable soil to get here. And you planted seeds to be able to get to this place. Now, this place provides a different kind of thing than the previous place does. And we're just getting used to that now. So that's what occurs to me in thinking about this inquiry. I'd like to hear from you. And I'd like to know what comes up for you as you hear me, explore these ideas.
Well, wow, first is what comes up for me. To find wonder, to find excitement in the subtle is, and to cultivate that. Here's what I know I've cultivated this in my recovery is that I stick around and I hear things and every once in a while I get a ping. And for me, when I hear it, when I feel that ping, it's because I know what I just heard is the truth. And that's just happened for me in listening to you talk about um, the subtle and to find joy and wonderment in the subtle. There was one other thing that you said that really made me think, and that was the idea of Guru Prem pushing your buttons and challenging you. And it feels like it's been a long time since I've had a teacher that has done that for me. And so that really feels like an important thing to start looking for is a teacher that's going to make me a little pissed off sometimes because I haven't had that since my first sponsor, to be honest.
Yes. I don't know what it is. I have to a fault, I surround myself with those people, and it's not always easy for me, to be honest. But I obviously I choose that, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And I can't imagine my life without being provoked. I think collectively we've all experienced over the last 3 years like a heightened level of anxiety and challenge and difficulty. New things have presented themselves that we can get caught up in. Let's just put it that way. And this certainly the same is true for me. And so now it seems more of a necessity as more challenge has arisen. It's difficult to be human. It's difficult to be human now at these times. There's like a unique set of challenges. I don't have the lesson plan for this, but there are people around who have some wisdom. And when I find them, I make a point of putting myself around them. I get close to them and I want to stay close to them. And I don't mind being a little pushy in the sense of, hey, uh, like with Guru Prem, like I'm going to, make a point of being around you for a while. I hope you don't mind, or any of the other people that I might accost when I notice that they are further along the path than me. That's how you know there's a teacher there.
The last thing I'll add, Tommy, is just like in the best teachers I've had, the best counselors I've had, always help me slightly shift my perspective, and your words today have done that. So thank you so much.
Oh God, Damon, thank you, man. I just love you so much. Thank you for your earnestness, and I'm so excited to sit in this circle with you. Thank you for being here. Grateful.